Welcome to the Thriving Through podcast, where we dive deep into the real experiences of successful consultants. Are you a self-employed consultant struggling with fear, lack of confidence, or finding clients? In episode 7 of the Thriving Through podcast, I interview Beverly Flores, founder of Thyme Out Consulting, who shares her journey from a 24-year corporate career to launching her own successful consulting business. Beverly reveals how she secured 13 clients in her first 6 months. That's pretty darn impressive. How she conquered the fear of setting premium prices. How she transitioned from corporate stability to entrepreneurial freedom. And how she uses her core values of courage and freedom to guide her business decisions. One standout moment is when Beverly shares her pricing strategy. You can always choose to lessen the price if you get feedback. You can't ever increase the price after you presented it. Whether you're just starting out or looking to grow your consulting practice, Beverly's authentic insights on overcoming fear, defining success on your own terms, and creating a business aligned with your values will inspire you to take your next courageous step forward. Welcome to today's episode of the Thriving Through podcast. Today, my guest is Beverly Flores, who is the founder of Thyme Out Consulting. Welcome, Beverly. Glad to have you. And tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, thank you, AJ, for inviting me on. I'm really excited about this. As you mentioned, I'm the founder of Thyme Out Consulting, and I help businesses and individuals unlock their potential. And in today's environment, being able to have that confidence to unlocking what's possible really helps to give back some of that control to individuals and businesses.
Love it. Love it. And for those of you listening, you notice Beverly used an I help statement, which is one of the things that I always talk about is when we're talking about how we serve our clients, how do we help them? And that was a great summary of how you help.
Yeah, thank you, AJ. I think, one of the things, and I know we're going to go into it, is really being able to make that transition from what I do to, more importantly, thinking about my clients and what is it that I'm helping them to do, to solve, right? And understanding, I don't like to use the word problem. I like challenge, but what's their challenge, right? And how do we help lift them up so that they can begin to see that potential from the other side?
Exactly. Because the fact is, people and companies don't hire consultants. They hire people with a label consultant to solve a problem or overcome a challenge for them. But
Oh, absolutely.
they didn't wake up this morning and say, I think I'm going to hire a consultant today.
And in fact, I had a 24-year career at a Fortune 100 company. And depending upon the senior leadership, we either had a really big appetite to bring in outside consultants or we didn't. And so I've been on both sides of that fence. And one of the things we'd always joke about was hiring a consultant is like bringing someone in, taking off your watch, handing it to them and saying, tell me the time. In a lot of cases, you already have the answers. You either just forgot that you had the answer literally on your arm in that case, or you just didn't know how to look at the watch. And so a consultant's job, a coach's job, is to help the individual say, you already have what you need. We're just going to help you refine it and connect it together so that, especially in the case of like businesses, that unlocking potential, that can generate revenue, that can create efficiency, it can create better cultures for people, which I'm really passionate about. And then how you connect that all together, because at the end of the day, I think majority of people in businesses, we just want things to be better.
And often, do you find that they know what they want to be better, or is it a little vaguer than that? I'm just not satisfied with where I am. and I want to be somewhere else, but I don't know where.
Yeah. And, I think part of being a consultant and a coach is the ability to paint that picture for what is possible, right? It's also recognizing you're not the one, though, that's actually going to create the artwork. And so being able to define it and leveraging whether it's statistics or customer and client testimonials to my own ability of how I connect those dots together through my own experiences. And then being able to put that in front of the client and saying, here's what's possible. Is this aligning with the vision that you have? But in a lot of cases, the first step is just helping them create the vision and then getting to the practical side of it.
Yes, and I want to come back to that, but first I want to ask you a kind of go back a little bit and find out, you had a 24-year corporate career in a Fortune 100 company. What was your path to becoming a self-employed consultant?
I think probably like a lot of entrepreneurs, it is we don't necessarily intend for that to be the original path, but we're given life choices or life outcomes that then help direct us, and we either choose it or we get to a point where this is the option that we want to explore. And really that was for me after that 24-year career. We went through a restructuring, and the opportunity presented itself. And I had been looking, I knew that I really wanted to put a focus on how I was helping people. So I'm a firm believer, and this was kind of one of my driving, I guess, foundations when I was in my career is I believe that if companies would treat their employees as people first, we will get better employees. And when we have better employees, we have better businesses. So instead of focusing on the business first and saying we have 67,000 employees, no, we have 67,000 people. So that when we can create that environment where, as I would tell my teams, and I managed people across 5 different countries, and had large teams and direct reports, and what I wanted was, I don't want when you get off the public transport or you're in your car and you're deciding to go into the office, or if you're working from home and you're turning on the computer, I don't want you to have to leave a portion of yourself in the car. I don't want you to have to leave a portion on the other side of the computer if you're working from home, right? I
Mhm.
want a place where, as people, we can choose to bring our whole self into our professional space. We are valued and respected for it. And through that, we bring innovation, we bring creativity and collaboration. And through that, then we have the ability to be more agile in our business environment and to create things we might not have even dreamed of being possible when we left part of ourself in the parking lot.
Right.
So that was a really big driver for me. And the joke among my teams was always like, "Hey, when you retire, you're totally going to go be a coach or consultant because it's so clear that your passion is on the strategy side and on people development." And as things conspired, the universe or whatever your faith system is, God said, "Hey, we're going to do this a little bit sooner." And so I got that choice. I'm a single mom with I have my boys 100%. So I understand for individuals that are thinking about career transitions that you also have this set of responsibilities, and that may be keeping you in an environment that if you had your own choice, you might do differently. So part of it for me is how do I bring my own experiences, both from a leadership and a career, to also a personal perspective. And coaching and consulting, the more I looked at it, I really didn't at this point in time want to go back into a corporate role. And I
Mhm.
felt I owed it to myself to go explore this option. And so basically, I gave myself a year. I made some budget decisions so that I could do that and feel less risky if and what was in my control. And I started with zero and just was like, right, I need a name. Need to build the brand because I led advertising for North and South America. So I understood the principles on the marketing side and had experiences in communication. So now it was bringing it to life. And I can say for sure one of the things that I really respect and value that I had in the corporate setting is the true subject matter experts that were there, right? Now I'm kind of a jack of all trades. I've chosen that a little bit because of working with small businesses. I want to understand what are the true choices that they do have to make. But I also love it from the creativity side. But at the end of the day, I chose it because this is what aligns most directly and resonates the best with who I am as an individual and who I am as a leader and a professional.
Love it. And you must be doing something right because you've had what I would consider extraordinary success for the first 6 months. I mean, I tell starting out consultants that it's going to be slow for 6 months to a year, but I think when we talked earlier, you said you've secured 13 clients.
Yes, yes. And a mix of, so I have really two key offerings. I have the one where I serve as a business consultant and coach. And then I have one that is a direct individual program. And that's looking at how you own your career and love your life, because you actually can do both of those. And, I think a lot of it came back from the networking side of it, but also I wasn't afraid to take the step. I'd already had the significant career changes in my corporate career that I knew what it felt like to be afraid of taking the chance, right? If where
Mhm.
fear held me back, in a sense. And then on the other side of it, what have I done in spite of fear? And, like I said, I'm a single mom. I have three incredible boys. And one of the most reaffirming statements one of my boys made to me, so they chose to start their own business this winter. They're doing lawn care services and they're building this amazing brand. And I'm so proud of them. But one of them had to do a newspaper story about students that have their own businesses. And one of the questions was, why did you start your own business? And his answer, and this was the most touching answer out of everything I've done over the last 6 months, he said, because I saw my mom take the chance to start her own company, I knew that I could do it too.
Oh, wow.
I had 24 years of a very successful corporate career. I traveled the world. We did great things and fun things, and I met amazing people, and we provided incredible solutions that help feed the world. But none of that equates to that singular statement of being able to inspire in my children the confidence that they can do things that others might seem is risky or uncertain.
Mhm.
So to me, to have that affirmation, and I transition that then into working with my clients, I love when my clients begin to see themselves for the full potential that they bring to the table. They're going to share that with somebody else, right? They're going to show up differently, whether it's for their friends and family, whether it's professionally, and more importantly for themselves. Those are the aha moments that I love just continuing to build on, and I think it fuels me as well. I'm very purposeful in my mindset. And I think as you're beginning as a new coach, or if you're thinking about that and you're going, gosh, this is really hard. And um, yeah, it is. But
Mhm.
is it as hard as being unfulfilled in a different place or a different career choice? I would much rather take this pressure and this challenge than sitting in a space where I felt like I wasn't valued and that I couldn't bring all that I was into my career. So I think it's understanding as you're going into this, you are choosing to take on the challenge. It's almost like you get the opportunity, you get the privilege of making this choice, and
Mhm.
it's not one everyone will make. And if you bring that energy and enthusiasm, that intensity, it's not going to make it necessarily any less hard, but it's going to make it so that there's a clear possibility that you can embrace. And that's what you have to hold on to.
Yes. What you're talking about is I uh, that's is really the mind and mindset. And that's one of my pillars in my consulting business or my coaching business is mind, messaging, and marketing, and they all have to fit together. And what I'm particularly impressed with is that you have the mindset. And I want to go back to something you said. You talked about that you had the experience of experiencing fear in your corporate jobs, and by getting through that fear, then it made you maybe not completely fearless, but it made you less fearful when you got into your own business, which by definition is terrifying. So tell me a little bit more about how you transitioned from fearful to being able to move forward without fear or through the fear. How did you conquer fear?
So for me, one of the exercises that I do in my individual client program is first and foremost identifying your core values. I'm a huge proponent of Brene Brown, if we're allowed to say like other people's names, but I
Yeah,
love Brene Brown.
Brene Brown. Yep.
Her book, Dare to Lead, was probably one of the big life-changing moments in my corporate career. And that was probably, I don't know, 6, 8 years ago in a sense. And like I always have the book right near my desk. It's, worn. I led book clubs in the company that I was in because it was so impactful and I believed in it. And one of the things I talk about is like understanding and defining your 2 core values. One of mine is courage, and my other one is freedom. So you can begin to imagine when in a corporate environment, I felt very restricted. So it was going counter and in conflict with one of my core values.
Mhm.
Um, I wasn't then always bringing forward my best behaviors in that response. So I tend to get more quiet if I feel like I don't have options and I'm backed into a corner. And as a leader, that's not a great trait because then you're not advocating for your people, your teams, your ideas, right? Myself. And so as I was starting to do that, that's where that fear came into play is like, okay, well, I'm getting pushed back into a corner, so I'm just going to be more quiet. And I started to shrink down.
Mhm.
And one of the things that changed that in 2018, my boys and I had gone skiing in France. And we had awful, awful, horrific travel delays. And I have traveled a lot. And this was probably one of the worst scenarios that we had been in. It ended up, and you can imagine we had traveled for a month over break. We had more luggage than you needed. We had ski gear, we had non-ski gear. I think my twins were 9. No, they would have been 8 at the time. And my oldest would have been 16, 15 or 16. And we're trying to maneuver, I don't speak French, and so we had some things going on in there. Finally, they moved us to a completely different airport the next day. They bussed everybody to Lyon. And then we waited a whole day again to try and get out. And finally, we're going through security. And the security guard, I mean, we just must have all just looked, exhausted and frustrated. And he goes, "Courage." And I kind of looked at him, and just like, "Take my boarding pass, please let us in." And he's like, "Courage." And I don't know, it just triggered something in me that was like, courage. And ever since then, and aligning that with my core foundational belief of courage, it's this rallying cry. So when I made this decision, I kept going back to what are my core values? And if you haven't done this exercise as a coach or a consultant, I would highly encourage you to do it. Know your why. Mine are freedom and courage. So I have a lot of freedom right now as a small business owner, as an independent business owner, tons of freedom. It takes courage every morning, every afternoon, every call, every pitch, every no to then have the courage to do it again. And so that was really how I overcame the fear was sitting with myself and saying, what do you have to lose? Like, I thought everything was my corporate career. That was safety, it was innovation, it was challenging, but it wasn't aligned to my core values anymore. And you have to, I think most people, if they are honest with themselves, you get to a point where you really need to sit with yourself and be honest with yourself. And if you tell yourself the truth, you know what you need to do next. It's just
Yes.
taking the time to sit with yourself.
And sometimes, like you had universe, God, whatever, nudged you. When I closed my consulting business, I had the same experience because I didn't realize I'd been a consultant for over 35 years and it was what I was. I didn't realize that over the last decade I had gotten increasingly unaligned. And
Mhm.
I really didn't want to help companies make more money anymore. I
Yeah.
wanted to help individuals. So universe conspired and I lost my biggest retainer client. And when I thought about building my business back up, I gotten a little complacent with that retainer client.
Mhm.
I just couldn't face building it back up. So I closed it and decided to become a coach. But it was that feeling of this is just doesn't mean anything anymore. It is not fulfilling. I don't feel like I'm really helping. And it sounds like you were nudged in a similar
Yeah.
manner
Yeah,
of
and it led us to meetings, so it's worked out well.
yes. So I have another question. One of the things that I see consultants struggle with who've had very long corporate careers is that when they go out on their own, they struggle with the issue of credibility of, do I have enough initials, alphabet initials behind my name? Do I need a certification in this? And a lot of them fall into the trap of getting certifications and taking programs and investing in professional development, and I have nothing against professional development, but sometimes it can be a way to not face getting out there. So how have you leveraged your 24 years of corporate experience when you're marketing yourself as yourself for your business?
I was fortunate in my career, in my corporate career, that I had a lot of communications roles. They were very public facing. So I was a lobbyist, I was our PR director, I led our advertising. They were all things I had zero background in. So I had to learn very early. I remember when I first got the lobbying position, they kind of had done an internal search, called me in and said, "Hey, you checked public affairs." In full transparency, I thought I had checked public relations, not public affairs. And so they're like, "Hey, so what do you know about lobbying?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm an informed voter." Like, I don't know. Like, you talk to people, you advocate. And they said, "Well, do you think you can learn it?" I said, I don't know why not. And so I immediately called my younger brother, who at the time he was a staffer in DC. And I said, "What makes a good lobbyist?" And he told me two really key aspects of that. One, always tell the truth, tell the whole story. And two, I would have to learn to separate what I was being asked to lobby on from a corporate business perspective from if they varied from my personal beliefs.
Mm.
That's easy enough. I'm getting paid to advocate for the company. If I needed to, I could have. And so I took that in that position. I've always embraced going into something that I didn't have the letters behind my name. What I had was my character. I had my ability to learn. I had my curiosity. I've always tried to be humble going into a new team because I was put into teams to change them. So I had to learn to listen and to value expertise. So I took that, and even especially as like the PR director, I had zero background in that space when I was put into that role. And quite frankly, I will still tell you to this day, I'm not a huge fan of doing on camera like interviews because I turn into a robot. Now, verbal ones, I'm fantastic on. Written ones, awesome. But you put me like in a Facebook Live when they first started, and I would just get very corporate speak, very black and white. And so I've worked to improve that. All of that goes into then as a coach, the first and foremost piece of this is one, going back to why are you choosing to do this? Two, do you value your experiences and your expertise in alignment with that choice? The very first client that I basically did some beta testing with, I put out a low price. I have a high ticket offering for my program. I started at what I thought felt very uncomfortable price to ask for, because she was my first one, and it was about half of what my current program is today. And that felt so risky. But in my head, I was like, oh, I gotta go for this. I gotta go for this. And I did. And she said yes to half the amount. I was like, oh gosh, that was, she said yes really easy to that. Okay. So I got through that. She was great because she gave me feedback. And I've been fortunate, that she's now networked and she shared with someone that then as I got into the next client, I knew that if I wanted this to be successful, I was going to have to ask for what I'm worth and the value that then I'm bringing to someone else, which is what they are worth. So in combination, it's that confidence to say, I have had 24 years of experience and I'm bringing this to someone that has not had these experiences. You get 24 years of experience in 10 weeks. I would take that, wouldn't you?
Mhm.
So as we're aligning that and moving that forward is really in your head, and you're going to have these moments when you're pitching. And I'm not sure, and you might know, AJ, even when, with the years of experience, there were probably times when you were going, should I ask for this much? Even though you knew you had every right to ask for that much, right? So it's that inner dialogue with yourself that goes, yes, you're going to ask for this much. Because here's the thing. You can always choose to lessen the price if after you present it, you get pushback. You can't ever increase the price after you presented it, right? You can't go, hey, AJ, it's 2,000. Go, sweet, that's fine. And then I go, oh, no, never mind. It's actually 3,000. You said that yes too quickly. I'm going to increase it. It's not a bidding war.
Exactly.
The other thing that I was very fortunate, I have a fantastic set of coaches, and this is what you're providing, and why I love what you're doing in the podcast, is you are giving access to people to learn from others. And I've been really fortunate that I've had some coaches that I can call upon. I've got some business leaders that I can call upon. One of the things the business leader told me when it comes to putting the price out there, put out the price. Don't be the first person to speak after you give the price. Because when you're in a pricing scenario, so you've done everything, they've come along with you to this point, now they want to know the price. You're putting the price out there for the program. Don't say anything. Let that sit there. It will be uncomfortable, especially if you're new into this. But it's also an old PR trick. Human beings, we don't like silence. We will do just about anything to fill silence. Same thing on the sales side of it. So put the price out there, just sit with it. If you need to act like you're taking notes, take a drink of water, whatever, don't say anything. The power in that negotiating setting is to the person that doesn't speak. So let them come back. Most times they'll be like, okay, that sounds good. Or it might be, oh, I'm not sure how I can afford that. Okay, that's an objection. That's easy to set aside. If they give you price as your first objection, then you didn't cover some of the other objections and then cover what you're really getting at, which then goes to what are you truly helping them to accomplish differently? So all of those things. So I can connect all of that across my career and being able to be in change management and strategy. It doesn't mean though, at the end of the day, sometimes in those conversations that I'm like, oh, was this the right price? Should I have said this one, right? That's your motivator, right? But it's about not letting that fear control you and recognizing fear and hope share a common foundation.
Mm.
You have to believe in them for them to exist. So why wouldn't you choose to believe in hope instead of giving life to fear?
Ooh, I love that because how many of us give life to fear?
Yeah, it's easy. It's a safety net, right? It's ego protecting ourselves. Like, oh, if you stay here where it's comfortable, that's safer. Well, if I stay in that safe environment where it's easy to ask for a lower priced option, I'm not ever going to be at the financial level and success that I want to be at for myself and my family. So I have to make that conscious choice, or I'm going to have to make a conscious choice to go back into corporate America or go back into a guaranteed paycheck. And I think that's one of the biggest things you talk about, people coming from a corporate career, we get used to the paycheck. So how do you turn that fear into a motivator? And that requires that you believe in what's possible.
Love it. I love your advice that the being courageous about just recognizing that this service or program that you're offering is worth this much, and then putting it out there and then just waiting. Yeah. And but in those moments of silence, it's like, oh,
yeah, it's gonna feel a lot longer than it is. And that's why, again, kind of an old PR trick. So interviewers, what they'll do is they'll ask you a question and you'll answer, and they will be quiet, because most people that are then being interviewed will keep talking. And quite frankly, that's when you say the stuff you shouldn't have said in the first place.
right. Yeah, in a PR. Yep, absolutely. Yes. There's something you also talked about, and it kind of comes with putting the offer out there, is the no. Getting comfortable. I have a business coach who says that as a coach, maybe you'll get 1 out of 10. That means that you get 9 no's to get one yes. And yet I know that it was hard. No's initially for me were incredibly devastating. It's like, oh my God, I failed. I can't do this. I shouldn't be doing this. I'm not qualified. I don't have the right skills. All of the little monkey mind negative judgments would go careening through my head. So how have you gotten comfortable with putting the offer out there, waiting, and then having them come back and say no? And not because of price, but no.
Yeah, I think it's a range of emotions. I think there's some key, again, mindset components to this. Of one, you are not your emotions, right? So instead of like, I'm so disappointed, I'm so frustrated, right? These what we would deem negative or lower vibrating energies. Instead of saying I am statements are the most powerful statements you can make to yourself. So I'm very conscious about, instead of saying, I am so disappointed in this, like, I feel disappointed.
Mm.
And then I try very hard to mentally equate that. Why do I feel disappointed? I feel disappointed because I thought I did that one actually really pretty well, right? I feel disappointed because I misread that signal. If I had thought about that differently, I might have been able to convert that, right? So I feel disappointed because I wasn't as prepared as I could have been. So it's that equation of you aren't disappointment, you aren't frustration, you feel them. And then I'm very fortunate, as I mentioned, to have a great support system, and one of them, she has been a coach for me for many years, even before I started this. And one of the things she said to me is, beyond the emotions, you are okay. Let yourself move forward. So what I try to remember is, and Mel Robbins is really, talking about this and highlighting this right now, is let them, let me. If I have done everything that I can to the best of my ability in that pitch, and you have to be honest with yourself. If there's things to improve, then work on them. But if you've done everything that was in your control and they still said no, there's a reason. And that's on them, in terms of let them say no. Move forward, assess it, reflect on it. And if you aren't able to identify an area that you can improve upon realistically, move forward. Because the next person that's out there, they're the next person that you might help. It's unfortunate, it's sad that that individual isn't able to accept the help that's out there, but there's somebody that is, and there's 3 more people, and there's 5 more people. And so I think, again, focusing on that hope side of it, and that's where I come to is I know I have the experiences. I know I have a solid platform that I have built out. I know it's working because the clients I have in it are telling me it's working, right? I'm getting really good Google reviews. It's like these things are all working together. But it is sad when you see somebody that is struggling, you could make a difference in them. And I think one of the hardest parts is then not to say, you know what, I'll just decrease the price for you. It's the hardest part because you want to help people, right? I think that's a key driver behind why many coaches, whatever segment that you're in, are choosing to do it. But the reality is if you are having to decrease the price, then they aren't going to get the value. Price and value are not the same.
Right. And there might be resentment on your part. I know that was for true. Early on, I would do some discounting, and then I made it a policy not to,
Yeah.
because I would be resentful that I had decreased my price, and my resentment affected my work product and
Oh,
my
completely.
demeanor.
Yeah.
You
And I
know,
think the other side of it is you can't help everybody.
exactly. They're not your people,
Mm-mm.
and they're not coachable.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
the other thing. They have to be
Um,
coachable.
and so being able to again let yourself move forward from that no. I've got a young client that's just starting off her business, and so she had her first kind of fair for the area that she's in. And I'd been very realistic with her, like if you come away with one signed client from this, that's going to be awesome because fairs are really hard, to connect with your audience, even when it's targeted. So followed back up with her after the fair. The event had gone well. She was pleased with that. We'd worked on her confidence and her pitching skills and connecting with those clients. Said, how's the follow-up going? She said, well, I followed up with about half the list, but they've all been no's. So I just stopped reaching out.
Mm,
I said, right. So you're going to reach out to the other half of the list today. You are going to get so many no's. But if you give up on half the list, you're done. Like your business isn't going to succeed. That's the reality. Like you don't get the choice to say, well, that was hard. They don't like me. They said no. That's not an option. So she reached out to the second half of the list and we worked on her messaging just a tad bit. She's got a new client signed up. She said they loved me. And I said, you have to hold on to that feeling. Like capture that moment more than anything. And then it's almost like you have this little ball of energy that you just hold near and dear to you in your heart. They're like, right, I'm going to draw on that a little bit because I need to remember that yes feeling and the difference that I made.
I love it. Yeah, absolutely. You got to call the second list.
You
Don't be
got,
afraid of the
you got to keep
no's.
calling even when you don't want to. And the other thing is I really really try like go for a walk. It's easy to feel oddly overwhelmed and at the same time thinking there's a million more things that I could do. Sometimes you just take a break. Go
Yeah,
for a walk, go for a run, go to the gym, meditate, whatever connects with you at your foundational set of yourself. Set aside time for that because you need to also recoup your own energy.
very important. Yes. I want to switch gears a little bit. When we talked earlier, you mentioned that your biggest challenge is generating leads from people you don't know. What lead generation experiments are you currently trying, and what early indicators are you seeing?
So I'm working on 2 platforms. I have LinkedIn and Instagram are my key areas. And here's the great thing about a coach and not being in a corporate environment. If I don't like it, I can go change it in 30 minutes and try and build something else out. So where I'm right now is trying to decide, do I want to move to an automated system where it's taking off some of that administrative responsibility? Because one of the things, again, you've got to look at is, yes, there's 24 hours in a day, but you're not going to be working 24 hours a day. And if you are, then we also need to talk because that's
That's
not
the
going to
problem.
work.
Yep.
You need to have this, kind of living full life perspective. And so I'm looking at where is the best return for my coaching business. One of the ones that has the best return for me is connecting with my Chamber of Commerce. So I joined my Chamber of Commerce. I go to their networking events, and that's really helped me to make some broader connections that has led then to getting a couple of the businesses that I have in that. It's led to getting 3 of the 13 clients that I have, largely because I know I come across better in person than I do in kind of the digital space. The irony in that being, even when I led our advertising, I don't love social media. I'm not a big proponent of, so now having to live my life on social media, it doesn't resonate as authentically with me.
Mhm.
And I know that, so I have to compensate for that. And I leverage content calendars and building that out so that I don't kind of put my bias into my work. But that's part of it. And so, from a LinkedIn side of it, reach out and make connections. And I think this is, one of those areas of overcoming fear of like, well, why would somebody want to connect with me if they don't know me? I'll tell you what, it surprises me every day the number of people that accept my connection request. And I didn't really use LinkedIn that much when I was in my corporate career, again, because I just didn't like it. But what it does is connect you with those possible leads that are out there. Same thing if you're on Instagram or Facebook, right? Your audience is a key portion of that. So, one, know where your audience is. That also means you need to know who your audience is, and it's not everyone. So distinguish that.
Yep.
And then be able to kind of really understand what's that foundational system that's going to work for you. One of the next areas that I want to really work on is I have my website. It's a static website. You can send me, a contact form, but I'm not selling anything on the website. I actually want to start putting some short classes out there. So that means I also have to then generate the funnel that's going to come to the website. But then from the website, I can also then connect that into an email list, the CRM. That feels a little bit more authentic to me. So one of the things is I may start to shift away from some LinkedIn and Instagram and focus more on that true digital system that's outside of the social networks
Yeah. Yeah.
and experiment.
And then just use social network to maybe get the word out for those courses and
Yeah.
get, but rely on your email list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and right now, I don't have an email list again. And I think this is, we talk about overcoming fear. I think this was one of them, in which I go, gosh, do I want to get in, do I want to bother people in email? You're not bothering them if you have valuable content. So there's a key difference. And the thing is let your audience determine if it's valuable to them, not you pre-selecting or deselecting them
Mhm.
before you even send out the email. Give people the power of choice.
Yeah. Yeah. And have a call to action
Yes,
so that the ones that are interested. And people can always unsubscribe if it's not
absolutely.
meaningful. I think that that I've heard that, I hear that a lot. I don't want to bother them. Well, you have a genuine service, you help people, and if you are communicating with someone who has the problem that you uniquely can help them with, you're not bothering them. You're just making them aware that you're available. And
Mhm.
that's another one of those that you've overcome, is that I don't want to bother them.
And I had to overcome it in my corporate career as well. And I'd be interested in, because you've had so much direct experience in consulting and coaching. I suspect that's much more of a female orientated trait.
Uh, I don't have empirical data, but I could be pretty certain that yes, that is a female trait, is
Yeah.
not wanting to bother people, because
Yeah.
that trips women up in the corporate world all the time. Is
Huge.
I don't want to advocate, I don't want to bother you. Yeah, yeah,
Bother away.
exactly, exactly. Well, we're getting toward the end of our time. I have Oh, I have so many questions I want to ask, but I want you to do a little forward thinking and tell me where you see your business in 3 to 5 years.
Oh, I do this as the last exercise in my program. Where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years? So in 3 years, my twins will be finished with high school. So that opens up really kind of what my passion is, and that is travel, international travel. So that allows me, and that's one of the other reasons that I decided to do my coaching is I can do it anywhere, right? That
Mhm.
aligns with my freedom value. So ideally, 3 to 5 years. I have brought on another coach and someone that can do more face to face that would be specific still within the US. Ideally, I would have or be moving towards a house in the UK because that's my dream goal. That has been my dream goal for a long time. But from a coaching perspective, I think being able to have, as you mentioned, the solid retainers on the business side, helping these companies to grow and they're bringing me with them. And then being able to really have that full comprehensive system on the individual coaching side of it. 3 to 5 years, ideally, maybe it's two coaches that are at that point. But, being able to have the confidence, I don't want to say certainty because I don't think there is certainty, even in large Fortune 100 companies. That's a
Mhm.
myth.
Yes,
So it's more about really living a full life and being able to show up as the best version of myself.
yeah, that's a
So,
much bigger goal than just having a financial goal.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's, I know what I used to get for a salary check. I know I'm not getting that now. So the key goal of that being able to get back to that level, but also, to me, it's about believing in what's possible. And right now, I'm still gathering information to truly know what could be possible. Like that's my belief system is like believe in what's possible. Be limitless.
That's, I don't can think of a better way to end this interview. That is such be limitless and think and be possibilities oriented rather than what if it doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
What if
Be
it does? What if
yes,
it's wildly successful? What if it brings you in the income that you need to supplement your lifestyle, right? How you define your success is a very personal statement. Stop letting society define it for you.
very true. Yes. Yeah, when I was consulting, I often felt like I was a failure because I had a certain income goal in mind and I wasn't reaching it. And it took a therapist to say, how are you defining success? And it's like, well, I'm not a failure. I'm able to be home when my son goes to school and when he comes home, and I can go to every sporting event that he has. That is success,
Yes.
regardless. And I'm making enough money to be comfortable. So but it was making me miserable having that glass ceiling of I'm a successful consultant if I can make this much, and I just couldn't quite get there.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's defining our success in more than financial terms.
Yes, that's a big piece of that is, being able to reflect on, how are you doing from a spiritual side? You can define that however you wish to define it. How are you doing on a personal side? Yes, you have the professional side. And then, for me, it's how am I doing mentally and physically in my well-being, right? You can create those four buckets and how those look, those are within your control. That's your choice. So even owning your choices, that's success.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. This has been a delightful conversation, and that's a wrap for today's episode. Thank you for joining me for this enlightening conversation with Beverly Flores of Thyme Out Consulting. The key takeaway I want you to remember is that success in consulting isn't just about overcoming fear. It's about transforming that fear into courage and using it as motivation to move forward in your business. As Beverly so beautifully puts it, fear and hope share a common foundation. You have to believe in them for them to exist. So why wouldn't you choose to believe in hope? Here are some actions you can take to put today's insights into practice. First, identify your core values like Beverly did with courage and freedom. Use them as your compass when making business decisions, especially during challenging times. And two, practice the state your price and wait technique Beverly shared. Put your price out there confidently, then resist the urge to fill the silence. Remember that the power in a negotiation belongs to the person who speaks second. And third, redefine what success means to you beyond just financial goals. Consider your spiritual, personal, mental, and physical well-being as equally important measures of success. And finally, get help if you want to grow your business. Nothing beats having a coach or mentor to help you. That's where I come in. I can help you build a consulting practice that both nourishes your bank account and your soul. If that's of interest, book a free exploratory consultation with me. The link is in my Calendly link is in the show notes. And please, if you like today's episode, please click the subscribe button in your podcast app or on YouTube. And please leave a review of this podcast on your podcast app or YouTube so that other self-employed consultants like you can learn about the podcast. Until next time, keep thriving through.